that none of those links mention the name of this vendor either. Superb. And then the data sheet. When I was building this, the hardest thing that I found with it was getting the pick in the right mode, because it has a million different flags to set up a million different things in it, and unless you get precisely the right combination of exactly what's going on, it just won't work. So get the data sheet, print it out, bind it in a folder, use it. So, as I say, those links, high school level electronics, and a week of your time, and you'll have an RFID cloner of your very own. If you understand nothing beyond V equals IR, then it might take you a month. It's not a complicated project, it's really not. So, first off, let me say that I can answer technical questions over email. If you need some help understanding things, I cannot give out schematics, I cannot give out source code. I can give you schematic fragments. I can give you source code fragments. So if you ask me to build you a cloner, I can't do it. If you ask me to tell you what's wrong with your cloner design, I can do that. And then, just as a little bit of fun, turned out that after BlackHat Federal, I was left with 300 BlackHat CDs with an illegal presentation on them. What do you do with 300 BlackHat CDs? When you live in Pennsylvania, and you got 4 acres of land, and your brother-in-law's a gun nut. Would anyone like to see what a 30-06 round does to 150 BlackHat CDs? You ready?
Yep.
Whoa! Very satisfying. Believe me, that felt good. Also, we took 150 more of them and attacked them with a 12-gauge shotgun. Surprisingly less effective than the rifle. And then,
nice.
My brother-in-law is not a redneck, really. So, and then, because at some point the string broke and there were still CDs left everywhere, we had to finish them off. And to me, putting things out of their misery has to involve a 45.
Ready? Yep.
I had fun that day. So actually, can I ask, is Jeff Moss in the room? Jeff, are you here? Okay, because I actually have a souvenir for him from BlackHat DC. I don't think it would play, but I think it would look quite good in a frame. But if anyone sees Jeff, come tell him to collect his very special award from me. So yeah, that's about all I've got. Any questions? Yes. It is a little, but not enough to throw it off. I can demonstrate it if I put the whole thing on my arm. So not only am I getting interference in the inductance of the coil, but I'm also getting interference with the contacts on the back here, touching my skin. It stops working completely, actually. Here we go. So yeah, if I have my hand in the coil like this, and I can take my card, and it'll still read quite happily. It's actually getting thrown off by the reader at the moment. So it will still read quite happily, and I can have the coil over my wrist, and I can read it again, and it's pretty good. You can tune it much better, but the problem is that the finer you tune it, the higher the Q factor of the resonance circuit, the narrower the bandwidth becomes. So it becomes more sensitive to interference from hands and bodies and other bits of circuitry. So yeah, you can do it. I made a particular design decision to do it this way because it had nice high bandwidth and reasonable read range. But yes, you can improve it like that way. Yes? No. Common misconception, it's not radio. It's radio frequency, but it's not radio. It's a magnetic field. If you think of it more like a transformer than a radio transmitter, you're on the right track. So there are ways of concentrating it. You can use like a block of ferrite material, and that'll concentrate it. But you can't put kind of a directional RFID antenna on it. You can't put an RFID Yagi in, effectively. Yeah, the basic idea is to put as much power as you can through this coil and have the receiver as sensitive as possible. It does get dangerous, though, because this whole circuit runs off 5 volts, which it switches through the coil. When it comes out of the coil, it's working at about 100 volts. So you can imagine, if you have a coil this big, such as I was considering building for BlackHat, so that we could have an RFID wall of sheep. You walk past, your badge number just appears. Considered it, ran the numbers, decided that I didn't really want bare circuitry holding kilovolts at BlackHat. Just kind of seemed like a bad idea. I'm sorry? Yes.
I know it's not radio frequencies, but if there was another carrier, say like some other radio transmission, would it show up as spikes or noise on that transmission?
Yeah, I can actually demonstrate that. Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a reader here and a cloner here. So this is actively putting out 125 kilohertz radiation so that it can detect the cards that come near it. And if I put my cloner into read mode, you can see the green light is flashing, and it's affected by this reader. It's picking up the interference from this device. And when this is anywhere within range, it just won't clone it. Yeah, it doesn't want anything to do with it because there's just too much noise coming off this. So yes, they are susceptible to noise, but it's magnetic noise rather than electromagnetic noise. Did I see a hand over here? No? Any more questions? Oh, yes.
Can this be designed to be changed to do the writing as well, or do you just have to take the device and something?
Well, the idea is that virtually all of these cards are reprogrammable, but why bother? It's more work. It's just as easy to use this coil to read the card and then use the same coil in the same circuit to play back the code. It's actually a very, very trivial change to the way that you're operating the coil. And it's very easy to do. It's not complicated to use the same circuit to read and play back. So yes, you can reprogram the cards to have your own IDs in them, but it's an unnecessary complication. Although it would be an interesting publicity stunt. A lot of the Verichips are essentially the same as the pet tags that you get implanted in your cat's neck, so if it runs away, it can come back. A lot of those are reprogrammable. So I did actually consider a publicity stunt where I'd reprogram one of these chips with a badge number and adopt a kitten from a local animal shelter and then, break into the California Senate building with a kitten. It can be done. It can be done. I'd quite like to see the Homeland Security advisory that goes around about that. But yes, it can be done. Question at the back.
From a pen testing perspective, the ability to hide the device from something else, other than packaging or something along those lines, would you be able, with 2.0, to be able to make the antenna smaller, make it a little more compact?
Yeah, the only reason, and I do mean the only reason why the antenna is this size, is if you notice, it just happens to be the same size as a CDR box. Just because I was looking in my office for something that I could use as a coil form, and I thought, that'll work. You can make the antenna as big or as small as you like. One thing that I've been considering doing is putting a coil in the frame of a card holder on a lanyard. So you'd have like a fake printed badge, and you'd have the coil from the cloner in the frame of the lanyard with a wire running up your neck to a box in your pocket. So you actually swipe the badge, and it reads the coil in the frame of the badge, and it reads it like that. Yes, it's absolutely possible to make the coil as big or as small as you like, subject to some physical limits, but you can get it extremely small if you wanted to. Any more questions? Yes?
A smaller
Probably, but not significantly, because you can compensate for it by just adding more turns to it. You'll have to be careful that the circuit's still appropriately tuned, but yes, you can compensate for it. It's not a major hurdle. Over here. Let me put it to you this way. If you were to name the 10 biggest sites on the internet, I've probably had dealings with at least 4 of them. Every single one of them uses this exact technology from this exact vendor. It's common as muck. I have yet to encounter someone that uses something other than 125 kilohertz. I've seen people using Indala instead of those who shall remain nameless. But it's fundamentally the same technology, and it's just as vulnerable. It's just a slightly different modulation scheme. So as far as I'm aware, everyone uses it. When I gave my presentation in DC, I actually asked people to raise their hands if they were using either something other than 125 kilohertz procs or a second factor of authentication, like a pin pad or something. And I believe that there were 3 hands went up in the audience, one of whom was the vendor in question. Any more?
Just had a comment.
Yeah?
You mentioned cloning via the rewritable chips, and Adam already gave a talk earlier, which you were in software to do with our opinion.
Oh, okay.
And you can turn the PET chip into the
Vera chip. The PET chips and the Vera chips are basically exactly the same. The only difference is about 10 bits.
Country code is four places instead of 3.
Yeah, something like that. It's very, very similar. Yes?
To prevent having the reader of the bush near my point of entry with the RFID system, can I actively transmit noise that will prevent you from reading that everywhere outside of, let's say, a half inch from my reader?
In theory, in practice, it's going to be very difficult so that it's effective against sniffers in the area, but not against your actual reader. In theory, you can do it. In practice, it's going to be very difficult. So, well, I think that's all the time I have, so I'm going to vacate the premises now and just be impressed that I wasn't sued. Thank you very much.